Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Keith Brown has a massive, almost terminal case of cognitive dissonance. That's when, as most of you will know, you have two completely opposing thoughts in your head at the same time, and that you can believe both of them. This particular form of cognitive dissonance for Keith Brown is that he says that the SNP Greens alliance, this partnership that they have in government, is working really well. There's nothing wrong with it and it will last forever. And at the same time saying he would back the calls for a vote on it at conference, where he knows most people would vote against it. You can't have it both ways, Keith. Either it's working well or it's working so badly that people want to get rid of it. Which? Do tell. And that's the problem, of course. He can't tell because he daren't come down one side or the other because he's got no spine. And so it's basically, he's just a jellyfish, isn't he? Like a jellyfish, he hasn't got much of a brain either. But we'll have a look at this, see what he's saying. But it is absolutely bonkers. You cannot say that this SNP Greens alliance is working well when the vast proportion of Holyrood members want it ended. It's not working, is it? It's clearly not working. Keith Brown is possibly the only person who thinks it is. Here goes. So, absurd Keith Brown, and you can use any other word, ridiculous, foolish, whatever. Anyway, absurd Keith Brown claims SNP Greens partnership is working well, but would back a conference vote. It can't be working that well if you want the vote, mate. The SNP's deputy leader was blasted by the Scottish Tories after downplaying the fractured civil war going on within the party over the Butte House agreement. Well, it's hardly a civil war because most of them actually don't want the Greens there, like by a long way now. It is the vast majority, certainly all the backbenchers and half the frontbenchers. There is the little cabal at the top that does need to retain it. Humza Yousaf particularly, because after all he's the one who's aligned himself so strongly with them and said it must last, must stay, and so if it does go, it'll be seen as an embarrassment or even a humiliation to him. It could lead not just to a debate about a leadership challenge, but to an actual leadership challenge. He'll be seen as being so weak that he can't retain that, that it could possibly be the straw that breaks the back and leads to a challenge. Anyway, the SNP deputy leader Keith Brown, a man who's been marvellously over-promoted, has been, and I say marvellously because if anyone less suited to be in it, it's him, and so it's fantastic to see. He's been labelled absurd after claiming that his party's partnership with the Scottish Greens is working well. However, he did back a potential vote over the future of the Butte House Agreement as the Nationalist Conference in October. It's one we'd all like to see. I would love to see the vote simply because of the embarrassment it would cause the leadership. It would provide a further split in the party. And while they're split, two things happen. One, they hopefully will get rid of the Greens and remove all that foolishness. But secondly, while it splits the party, they're too busy with their internecine fighting between themselves to actually do any more real harm to the country. A civil war has broken out inside the SNP, with the installation of Humza Yousaf as leader not helping matters at all, not one little bit. That was another cause of splits. It's everywhere you look on virtually every policy there's a split. Anyway, the majority of the backbenchers refused to back their Green partners when pressed on this. Fergus Ewing has been the most outspoken member of the nationalist group, as he has labelled Patrick Harvey and Lord of Slater's party hard left extremists. They are crypto-Marxists. He also suggested that if they do not axe them, then they will continue to drop in the polls, as the reputation will become tarnished. Bit late for that. His comments were echoed by Joanna Cherry and former SNP leadership contender Kate Forbes, who also backed a potential vote on the future of the partnership at the conference. And I think here's where it's going to happen. You're going to have enough voices calling for it that the leadership will have to give in and have to allow the vote. And if the vote goes the way it's likely to go, then that will mean that the Greens will be out. And the thing is, even the calling the vote would be enough, I think, to force the Greens out. The very fact that the vote's being called will upset them, and they'll go, right, you call a vote, we're going. And that's Call the vote. Call the vote. For God's sake, call the vote. And off they go. And it doesn't matter what the vote result is, does it? His comments were echoed by Joanna Cherry and former SNP leadership Kate Forbes. Anyway, Mr. Yousaf has described the agreement as worth its weight in gold, and that is why any vote against it will be seen as a personal attack on him. He's failed the initial thing as a leader, which is to stamp himself as someone who doesn't stamp himself. You support without being seen to support, or you remain aloof and say, I'll let you decide what we should do, and then whatever happens, then he can stand there above, in a sort of in the God spot, not getting involved. But of course, he's pinned his colours to the mast, and if they go down, he goes down. It's very simple. Mr. Brown was interviewed on Good Morning Scotland and confirmed that there were issues within the SNP. As he said, there is no question that the party has challenges, has many, many challenges. And when asked if they were not a happy ship, he did say he would support a debate at a conference on the future of the Greens partnership. Not a happy ship. I think it's best to say that the crew are mutinous, that the ship has got a hole in it and it's sinking fast, and that the cargo is shifting towards the right. Let's put it that way. They have got absolutely no chance of keeping this ship afloat, I think. They're certainly not going to win the election. The election's gone. Ruther Glen's definitely gone, but I think even then, the general election's gone. They're going to lose a lot of seats. Anyway, he said, if that is the case, he said, when people want to have that discussion, he says, then if that gets to the agenda, then of course I will support the debate. He says, but then there's a process that has to be gone through. My own personal view is that we have a very comprehensive vote in favour of that Butte House agreement. Then, you see, the argument he's using again, and I've said it before, is, oh, we had 95% of people vote at the time. Yes, before this come in, said, shall we do it? 95% said yes. They've now had 2 years of seeing it in action, and a change of leadership, and the loss at the polls, falling in the polls, and a loss of council seats. An awful lot has changed. And your view is, yes, we had a referendum in 2014, but now a lot of things have changed. Let's have another referendum. Well, let's hold that same argument then. Yeah, you were 95% in favour then, but a lot has changed. And if you're still confident, let's have another vote. If you're confident, you'll win it. If you're not confident, then you won't. And that's why you don't want the vote, because you know you're not going to win. Mr. Brown also hit back at the claims that the Greens are hard left extremists, but they most certainly are, saying that was an absurd characterisation. No, it really isn't. They are Marxists. Before suggesting the partnership was working very well because he's delusional. A number of Scottish Tories branded the SNP leader absurd himself over his comments, as they pointed out a number of issues which were popular with the public but hated by the Greens, which included dualling the A9 and the oil and gas industry. Coming to the end here. So Chairman Craig Hoy said Keith Brown's cavalier dismissal of Fergus Ewan's concerns about the Greens being in government with his party sums up how the SNP are fighting like gnats in a sack. The SNP deputy leader is clearly happy for the extremist and anti-growth green tail to continue wagging the little yellow dog. What is absurd is for Keith Brown to be saying the agreement with the Greens is working well. He should try telling that to the workers in the oil and gas industry, who they would happily throw under a bus. And he's right. I mean, the whole thing about the SNP and the Greens was theoretically to give the SNP the ability to get their laws through, get their policy through. And so far, every single policy that's gone through, or that's been proposed, not gone through, that's proposed, has been a Green one. The SNP have proposed nothing. It's been Greens all the way, and every single policy has failed. And for that, we must be truly thankful. And I'm coming up. Somewhere out there is an alternative universe where Keith Brown is occasionally right about something. But it isn't this one, is it? He's like all of them in the SNP. He's a serial failure. Everything he does, he gets wrong. He's never got anything right. Nothing. He's certainly not got the option on the Greens right. But he says, oh, it's working well, it's working well. No, it isn't. Anyway, let's hope when they get to their conference in October that there is enough voices clamouring, and that they do allow the vote to take place, and that the Greens take umbrage and run away and hide, stamping their tiny, useless feet. Till then, we can but hope. And of course, the other thing we can do is to hit that subscribe button to really help the project. The project is to keep the truth coming, and you're as much part of it as I am. By hitting that subscribe button, you can help us out. And also, hit the like. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, Keith Brown, he is absurd. Bye.